Hello and welcome back to Growing in the Cove. It's May 25th and today I'm going to plant some carrots. Things in the garden seem to be growing now at a really fast rate, and this is the time of year that I love the most, where every day I come out and I see something else is emerging from the ground. I've got spring flowers in bloom, and it's just such a time of hope. And hope is planting a seed. There is nothing more hopeful in this life than planting something that we have yet to see to fruition. So today I'm going to be planting some carrots in this bed. I always like to do a full bed of carrots because they're one of the best things that you can grow in your garden. They grow really well here in Newfoundland, and they don't really require a whole lot of inputs from me other than I give them some really good compost at the beginning of the season and keep them watered and weeded. So I've got two types I'm going to be growing today. Both are pelleted seeds. I've used non-pelleted seeds before and I find those great too, but I just find these a little bit easier to plant. So I've got two types. I've got Napoli, which is a nant type of carrot. They're known as the really sweet coreless carrots. They do have a core, but they're just really sweet. And I've also got Bolero, which is a great storage carrot. So I'm gonna get some compost spread onto these beds. I'm gonna be using the Pisces compost, which is a great local product that you can get. One of the best things you can put on your garden. So I'm going to spread that and I will get back to you when that's done. This year I did things a little bit differently, and I actually started by forking my whole garden. This is going to make it easier hopefully for the carrots to actually grow down into the soil. So that's why a lot of people add sand to their soil, because if your soil is too compact, the carrots will not be able to form their root deep into the soil. So this year I decided to try to loosen up my soil a bit by using my fork and making holes. This is one of the best composts that I can find to purchase from a store. Of course, it's always great to make your own compost, but if you are looking for a product, this is excellent. I like to put at least 2 bags down on my 8x4 beds. I did this to my garlic bed last year, and I had really great garlic, and I also did this to my carrot bed last year. I spread this on at the beginning of the season and I had fantastic carrots. So I'm not going to change that up, and I'm now going to spread this all over my beds. You can find this at a lot of garden centers here in St. John's. They also sell a triple mix, but make sure you get the compost because the bags look really similar. So for planting carrots, I like to use 2 sticks and a string to keep my lines straight. I like to use this little dibber that I bought at my local garden supply store and seed store, Gaze Seeds, in downtown St. John's. I use this for everything, for transplanting, for planting seeds, but you could use, you know, a stick, you could use a trowel to make a little trench for your seeds. You don't need this to be super deep. Okay, so now that my trench is done, I'm gonna take some pelleted carrot seed. This is what it looks like. And I'm going to space each seed about 1 inch apart. Now, if I had regular carrot seed, I would not go through the trouble of painstakingly putting each carrot seed in its place. I would just sprinkle kind of thinly down the row, because what you'll find is that if they all germinate, you're going to have so many carrots to thin out. And once these do sprout, we will be thinning to make sure there's at least a couple of inches in between each carrot to give them room to grow. Now that all my carrot seeds are planted in this row, I'm going to cover them with soil. It takes about 1/4 inch of soil over the row. So I just tend to fluff up the soil enough to cover up the carrots and then pat down so they have good contact with the damp soil. I like to space my carrot rows about 1 foot apart. So now I will move my stick on each side and start my next row of carrots. Giving them 1 foot of space in between each row seems like a lot for something small like a carrot, but you would be surprised once they actually start filling in and the greens start bulking out, that you're really going to want that space. It also gives you an opportunity to plant the areas in between with a fast growing crop like lettuce or spinach or radishes that will be done long before your carrot matures. And my carrot bed is complete. I'm going to water it and try and keep it watered until I see some germination. With pelleted seeds, I find it takes longer for them to germinate because that little coating around the seed has to break down first. So it could be a couple of weeks before I see anything, but keeping it wet is the best way to speed up the germination. I am planting up my dahlia bed. These are all last year's tubers that I saved over the winter. They all have this flagging tape just so I can keep track of the varieties as I plant them. You can see a lot of them have sprouted, so that's really good. I like to plant them about 1 foot apart, and I bury them about 6 inches down. So I am going to start planting these up. It's now been 2 weeks since I planted my carrot seeds, and I wanted to give you an update on how they're doing and how it really does take a few weeks for things to germinate and get going, especially if you're using pelleted seeds. So I'm going to give you an up close and personal look at how my rows are doing. As you can see in this row right here, that I have a row of carrots that has germinated, as well as over here. I do find with carrots that it takes a while for them to actually show themselves because they're so teeny tiny microscopic for a long time. It looks like I don't have anything up in these rows yet, but I do have one right here. So they're doing fantastic. And it is June the 9th today, and it's still a great time to plant carrots. And I think you've got pretty much until the end of June to get them in the ground, and you'll still have a fantastic crop in the fall. Here at the bottom, I also direct seeded some nasturtiums, which are coming up just for some color. So that is my carrot bed update. If you did some winter sowing with me this winter past, I am checking in on some of my containers, and as you can see, and this happens every year, that they have germinated well, but then they kind of just halt and stop growing. Likely the conditions are maybe even too wet in this container since it's been raining so much. So these are scarlet peony poppies, and I'm just going to plant some of these in my asparagus bed. And when you deal with things like poppies or other plants that don't like being transplanted, I use the chunk or hunk of seedlings method, which is super simple. So all you're going to want to do is very carefully dump out what's in your bottle or container, and you're left with this chunk of seedlings. And all I do is I split it into a few chunks like so. I'll probably split this into maybe 3 or 4 chunks. So we've got a chunk, and another. And then this is very, very, very simple. All you do is figure out where you want them to go. I want mine to go right here. And dig a hole and put the entire chunk, trying not to mess with the roots too much, into the hole like so, and press. And that's how you plant winter sown plants like poppies or whatever you have. Now, if you have something that doesn't mind being transplanted, then you can separate them one by one, and that's not a big deal. But like, this is very specific to poppies and how they will die if you mess with the roots too much. So there we go, another chunk, and press in. This is so simple, and in a few weeks, hopefully these will be blooming. I find with winter sown plants, once you put them in the ground, they take off. So they've been kind of stalling in the bottles. So if you check your bottles and they're still looking really small, it's worth getting them out and into the ground or into a pot, whatever you plan to do. It's now time for me to pinch my cosmos that I've grown from seed. I started these about 6 weeks ago indoors under my grow lights. You could absolutely grow them from seed straight into the soil and direct seed them, but you're probably going to get a later bloom of maybe later into September before they bloom. So I like to pinch my cosmos every year. So instead of each plant growing very tall and leggy, instead it will promote the side branches to grow and create a bushier plant, which looks better in the landscape. So I'm going to give you a look at how to pinch them. It can be a little bit stressful to take some of this beautiful, healthy growth off of plants that you've painstakingly nursed to get to this point, but I promise it makes such a difference in plants, and there are some annuals that really benefit from this. Cosmos, definitely. Zinnias. If you have branching sunflowers, they also benefit from a pinch. I also have some Mexican sunflower here, and they can be pinched. Impatiens. There's so many that will really appreciate this and form nicer plants. Okay, so for this job you can use pruners, or I have a pair of scissors here, or you can literally just use your fingernail and pinch them off with your finger. So this one's really easy to see because you can see this one's getting really tall. So this is the main stem of the plant, and if you separate this top growth, you can see that right here between these two leaves is where this main stem comes up, and this is where the new growth is coming from. So I'm actually going to take this and snip. So that is gone, and although this plant looks beheaded, it still has multiple branches on it, so it can photosynthesize, and all these tiny little new branches that are coming out in the armpit of each leaf node are now going to grow and make this plant a lot bushier. So let's do this again. This is a lot of plants here, but this one right here, if we separate, you can see right here we have two side branches, and straight from the middle is this main growth point. I'm going to take my scissors and snip, and they're pinched. Over here, again, if you just look at them and separate the leaves, you can see side branch, and then this is the main growth point. Snip. So as long as you leave at least 2 sets of leaves below, your plants will be fine. So all of my cosmos are now pinched. I had already pinched one a few weeks ago, and I wanted to show you the result already. So I pinched right here a few weeks ago, as you can see right here. And since then, I think that was maybe a week and a half ago that I pinched them. You can see there's 2 side shoots here, 2 side shoots here, and even down here on these lower branches, you can see there's new branches that are starting to form. So although it looks kind of funny right now, it is going to fill out and be more of a full plant rather than tall and leggy. So I really think it's worth doing this if you grow cosmos or other annuals that appreciate a good pinch. So this has been my gardening attire for the last week. Black flies have hatched here in Newfoundland, and it is almost unbearable to get any gardening done. So if there are any locals who see me outside, you will definitely recognize my bug net. I just wanted to conclude this video by thanking everyone who likes and comments and subscribes. I really appreciate it. I started out my gardening journey on Instagram when I started doing videos and just showing photos of what's been happening in my garden, and I've been on there for a few years, and I had a few requests from people to start a YouTube channel. So I am fairly new to YouTube, and I know my videos are not the best quality, and I'm hoping to improve on that with time, but the main reason I'm here is just to show people what I'm doing, and if I can teach you a thing or two, that's great. But I just want to share my love of gardening with everybody, and if I can promote others to get out and start growing, it's just such a rewarding hobby to have. So that concludes this week. Right now, we're at a time where it seems like day by day the garden is changing, certainly week by week. So I will be keeping you posted on all the changes that happen. Again, thank you so much for watching. It would help me out if you could hit the like button or subscribe if you would like to follow along and keep up with my videos. But otherwise, thanks again. I hope everybody's having a great weekend, and until next time, bye.